Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Lori Hoover, intuitive guide and psychic medium. Together, let's wake the fuck up. Today's guest has a background in neuroscience with more than 15 years of experience teaching and practicing yoga, meditation, mindfulness, and different healing modalities. He is able to synthesize modern scientific knowledge with ancient wisdom to help his clients get the results they desire. Having taught hundreds of workshops around the world, he has empowered people from all walks of life to realize their full potential and enable them to live a stress-free and meaningful life. My guest studied Tibetan Buddhism, yoga, and meditation at the Ratna Ling Retreat Center for 2 years. Committed to conscious lifestyle practices, he also co-founded Conscious Action, a movement of people committed to living more intentionally, and You Being You, offering practical lifelong well-being pathways for heart-connected conscious living. Please welcome Brian Berneman to the show.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you for that introduction, and thank you for having me on this podcast to wake the fuck up.
Well, I'm happy you're here. Thank you for joining me. So, Brian, would you mind sharing with us how you found yourself on this path?
Yes, definitely. Thank you for that. And I think I need to go back to my childhood and to my parents. I am really fortunate to have been brought up with the parents that I had. They, when I was in my early childhood, they started to be interested in their own path and in their own journey of spirituality. It started with them discovering, because my family is Jewish, they discovered Kabbalah as the esoteric teachings of Judaism, and they started studying that. And through that, my mom was interested in the astrological part of it, so she then started to study astrology, and through that then got into Tibetan Buddhism. And little by little, they started to change, and they started to bring home those new perspectives. And it was really interesting because, they were always really, really good at allowing us to be ourselves, and they wouldn't put anything that we didn't want to take. They were just inviting us, and if we wanted to take it, we would take it. So I really started to resonate with a lot of this. So a lot of the books that my parents would be sharing with us, I started reading them. My sister sometimes read some of them. My brothers weren't interested at all. And so it was nice that my parents allowed us to do that. But for me, there was something that resonated. And when I was a teenager, a late teenager especially, I started to get more and more interested. And one of the things that happened was, well, actually two main that happened. One was that I went to my first Tibetan yoga class, and that was what my parents were practicing. And for the first time in my life, I felt something that I had never felt before. I actually felt my body and I felt my feelings. And alongside that, what happened as well was that my mom asked me if I wanted to go to have a Reiki healing. And I'm like, I don't know what that is, but yes, I just trusted. And I went and I had this healing. And not only it was amazing and I felt the energy, I had this knowing that I wanted to learn how to do this. And I asked the person that was doing the session if he taught this. And he said yes. So I'm like, okay, cool. How do we do this? And he just closed his eyes for a moment. I remember this so much. He just closed his eyes and kind of like, like he's talking with someone. And then he told me, I'm being told that for you it's free because you're going to help so many people in the future. So I'm going to teach you for free. And so I went to have the first level of Reiki. And I I felt all of this energy because I've been playing a little bit, reading some books of the energy that I could feel. And I just felt this ball of energy so big that I couldn't contain it. And my teacher said, like, whoa, this has never happened before. Like that amount of energy that someone actually on the first attunement gets. And I think that, the path of working with energy and the path of returning to the body with Tibetan yoga and Tibetan meditation changed my life, because then I started to realize how not only I had that new path, but also I started to notice how my day-to-day life was changing and how I stopped being so stressed. And like I used to drive. So for those that perhaps have been in Buenos Aires in Argentina driving, there's a lot of cars, there's a lot of people, and people don't usually follow all of the rules. And I used to get road rage and, like turning people off and everything. And suddenly after some weeks of starting to do this work, I realized like, oh, I'm not reacting anymore. I notice it, but I'm not reacting anymore. So I started to notice like, is this related to what I'm doing in my practice? So I wanted to start more and more to delve into it. And I was still living, like more, let's call it normal life. I was like hanging out with friends. I had a girlfriend at the time. I was studying. I was doing like playing sports and everything. And I started to notice how there was this other aspect that I wanted to explore more and more and more. Little by little, a lot of those things started to take a back seat. And I was like, okay, at one point I was just in my very early 20s. And I thought, I need to make a change. So I just bought a one-way ticket to New York. I don't know why, but I bought a one-way ticket to New York and I left. And I've been now for 13 years discovering the world and discovering more of myself and going deeper and deeper and deeper. And as you said in the introduction, at one point I decided to go even deeper, and I moved to California, to the middle of the mountain, to a Tibetan Buddhist retreat center. I wanted to go deeper into the practices, deeper into understanding myself, and I ended up living there for a few years, trying to integrate more and more and more the teachings in daily life. And now that's what I shared with the world.
Wow. I can't even imagine having the opportunity that you were afforded by your parents being on their path in that way, so that you had that space. I mean, what a beautiful container to be raised in, to have the opportunity to experience all of that, because for most of us, it is not that way,
Yes.
So
Yeah,
that is, wow, amazing. But, and that you felt it so early on, and just that knowingness that like, do you want to go get Reiki? And you're like, yeah, I don't know what it is, but yes, I love that you just being open to it. It can come in so many different ways. I sometimes will I like rub my hands together, to kind of get things flowing, and I'll just sit there and I just play with it, and will pull my hands apart and bring them back together and just feel, and like I can take it out so far and I'll still feel that energy and then bring it back in and feel it. Just to play with it, because it's so amazing, that this is coming out of my physical body, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think there's something there, Lori, that I think is interesting, is that that's not coming out of your body. That's you tapping into the energy that is already there. And that is, one of the things, a lot of times when I see healers that are getting completely depleted after working like a day with clients, it's because they are actually putting their own energy instead of just allowing the energy to flow. And there's no right or wrong, like we're all in our own path. Yet I think that I've been fortunate that my teacher taught me that it's not you doing this, it's you just tapping into the energy, allowing the energy to flow. And what you're doing is, yes, you're noticing it, and you can notice more. And the more that you play, like, it's kind of like playing with a slinky. It's like, ooh, like and it goes there and it goes there. And I remember like sometime playing with some friends that were more open to this, and it's like, okay, here, like I'm throwing you the ball, and then they would catch it, and then having that element as well of changing perspective of like, am I doing this, or is this just I'm just tapping into the energy?
Yeah, I like that. I totally get that. It's just that feeling of being able to compress it between your hands just for fun. I just like to do that because it's like, wow, this is really cool. Brian, this podcast, it's all about connection and helping people to remember that we are in fact connected to everyone and everything, like it or not. And my hope is that by bringing awareness, it will help others live more consciously and sustainably, and to foster more space for compassion and empathy. So, what does living consciously mean to you, and how do we go about doing so?
Yes, thank you for that. And I think that it's very important a lot of times to understand what do we mean when we say these concepts. And for me, conscious living is about living connected and living with awareness. And what does it look like? It might look like differently for different people because we are all different and unique. There's a lot of similarities, but as well, we are all unique. And it's not about saying like, oh, you're different and I judge you. It's about understanding that we are all unique, and what living consciously might look like for me, it's different for you and for others. Now, I do have certain things that I would say generic, that I would say, okay, this is living consciously, living more connected within our bodies. So for those that perhaps haven't been or have been educated out of feeling their feelings and just using their heads, then integrating all of the different aspects of their mind, body, and spirit or energy, however we want to call that. Understanding our relationship and our connection with the spaces that we are in. And that means taking care of the spaces, especially with nature, and the role that it plays for us. And then as well, our relationships with others, regardless if they look the same, whether they are from the same culture or not, we are all connected. And there's in life awareness, and the more that we develop awareness, what we end up doing is we start to allow more perspectives to be real and true at the same time. So it's not that there is one perspective that is real and another one that is not. It's all of that can be true at the same time. So I, because of my values and how I feel, I can say, okay, living consciously for me means taking care of the earth. How does that look like? Well, like I eat organic. I grow some of my own food. I support the local farmers that grow organic food. I buy things without any plastic. So I don't buy anything that comes wrapped in plastic. I eat a plant-based diet. I'm vegan because I care about the environment. I care about the animals. I care about the water that it's used. I care about the supply chain. That is based on me. I choose what I'm wearing and choose what I'm living. I am able to do that, because I've had the fortune of growing up in the family that I grew up with, even though those weren't things that we were looking at. This came much later. And I'm able to have, in a sense, a privileged position that I can choose. Not everyone can choose because a lot of people are in survival mode. But living consciously as well means listening to yourself. So when there's time to slow down, to slow down. When there's time to rest, because your body is telling you to rest, to rest. When we are going to make a living and we're working in a place that is completely out of alignment with who we are and what we want to bring into the world, then potentially stopping that. Of course, there's steps that need to be taken there because we still need to actually make a living a lot of times. But it's about alignment, conscious living. And yes, I care about the environment, I care about people. So therefore, mental well-being is really important in a time that, like a lot of people have been disconnected from one another and have been caught up at home without much to do other than their thoughts and their fears. And if they don't have the tools, how do they deal with it? So being able to connect and to look for those different aspects inwardly and outwardly that make living consciously about being, as you said, being connected in all different aspects.
And that actually leads perfectly into my next question, because as thinking beings, we have a tendency to get stuck in our heads, ruminating over things, either past or future. So are there tricks to living in the present moment? Like, how do you bring yourself back if you start to go down that rabbit hole, whether it is something in the past or your future projection? How do you bring yourself back to the present moment?
Yes, thank you for that. And I think that there's a couple of things. One is that there is nothing wrong with that being your experience. So if you're listening to this and you think a lot and you ruminate, nothing wrong with it, completely natural and completely normal, because that's what your mind does. And that's where we've been focusing in this modern society all of our attention. So therefore, there's more of that. So the first thing is that it's not wrong. Secondly, I think that we live in a society that we want a lot of the quick tips and all of the give me the pill so I don't have this anymore. And sometimes it's not that easy. Sometimes it's simple, but sometimes not easy. There's a difference with that. And the simplicity is, one is coming back to the body. That was my path. Returning to my body, being able to understand the feelings in my body, returning to connecting with my breath. And by doing that, I'm allowing my awareness to be also down in my body. So not just in my head. So that created space for me to actually have more of a space to listen to my body, to my heart, to my gut, to, like the different aspects of my body that is just not in my head. The second thing, which is also important, is developing a relationship with my mind or the voices in my head. So this is something that when I teach at university, and this was actually the class from last week at university, teaching the students that it's not about trying to get rid of the thoughts. It's about understanding how to get to a place that we develop a relationship with that. Because all of the thoughts in our heads, they can come from elsewhere, but they are there to protect us. Everything that is happening is there to protect us. It might not serve us to be who we want to be. It might not serve us to the person that we want to be or to release our full potential that is already there. But it's there to protect us because it learned from past experiences, from our parents, our culture, our past lives, if we believe that, and all of our ancestors. So it knows how to protect us to stay safe. And the more that we allow ourselves to develop a relationship with those voices, the easier it is to not get caught up with them. So one of the frameworks that I use when I'm teaching this is understanding the different aspects of, for example, if you're having a thought, right? You hear someone that is speaking. Potentially it speaks in words or in another way, but there's one that actually is speaking. But if there's someone that is speaking, that means that there's someone that's listening. So are you the one that is speaking or are you the one that is listening? And if there's someone that is speaking and there's someone that is listening, who's noticing that? So are you the one that is noticing that that's happening? Or are you that it's noticing there's someone noticing that there's someone talking, that there's someone listening? So we can get all through, and that is awareness. It's about getting to a bigger view of what is happening. And the more that we allow that to happen, we can understand who are we identifying as, and understanding that I don't need to identify as that voice, especially if it's a negative critic one. I don't need to identify as that. I don't even need to identify with the positive one. because I am not that. Yes, that's part of my experience. And this is one of the biggest things that I took this a lot from the Tibetan Buddhist teachings, getting rid of the labels. I am not that. I am, and that is part of my experience. So if someone is stressed, they are not a stressed person. They are experiencing stress. If someone is depressed, the same. If someone, like all of these different labels that we put on ourselves, we are limiting our experience and we are limiting who we truly are, because that's not who we are. That's an experience that is happening, and we can choose as well. Of course, when we are doing this work, there's a lot that is involved in terms of the healing that needs to happen for us to be able to get out of that, because there's a lot that we've been taking on. But we can actually work with that to lessen the hold that our thoughts and our mind has on us. So if we don't have that grasping happening, by developing a better relationship with the voices in our head and going to the body as well, developing more awareness, we change that.
I agree with you. And because I've had an issue with that too, with people saying that you need to eliminate all of that, like when you're meditating or whatever. For me, it's just allowing it to be there. I can acknowledge it, but I don't necessarily have to follow it. I can just see it going by. Oh, look at that. Okay, it's a thought that popped up and that was that. So we all want to know the secret to this. How do you live without stress?
So there's a couple of things to understand there. So what is stress, right? Stress has been so normalized as well that it's part of our lives when it doesn't need to be. My teacher used to say, tension is normal, stress is not. And like with that, for me, what that means is that there's a natural component in our life that there's tension. So if there wouldn't be tension, life would be completely boring. I wouldn't be able to even move my arms, or I wouldn't be able to move my mouth so that I'm speaking and moving. I wouldn't be able to do this if there's no tension. Now, that tension is natural, and tension is part of life. What's not natural, that has been normalized, is the fact that we have created this stress. And that stress means that we are not actually understanding what is happening. We are not processing the experience. We are not feeling the feelings. We are not actually becoming aware of what is happening. And by not doing that and not integrating the experience, what we are doing is we are creating all of these unprocessed feelings and energy blockages that then we are taking on. When we do that, we are creating something that is not there. So as an example, if I am going to go, let's say, to a meeting, and that meeting hasn't happened yet, I can prepare for it, right? Just to make sure I know everything that I'm going to say. But to start to feel the fear and not actually feeling it, and just get caught up with there's fear, and I'm alert and my cortisol levels are coming up, and my system is actually starting to activate more in the sympathetic, and it's kind of like getting more and more hyped and more hyped. That is not going to be helpful if I cannot actually process it. If I can actually feel it, then good, because again, that's part of life. My sympathetic nervous system is going to kick in when I need to, but then I can actually kick in my parasympathetic nervous system. If I can't allow that to happen, then it's harder for me to respond accordingly. And that's one of the things that for me it's been really interesting, is I had to take the time to slow down, to be able to, when something happened, it's like, okay, I'm going to process this. So as an example, many years ago, I was in a relationship and my then girlfriend broke up with me. And what I did was I sat down until I felt it. And I felt all of it. And it was like around 40 minutes that I was sitting and I didn't move until I felt all of it. Everywhere in my body, all of the feelings that were coming up, all of the thoughts that were coming up, like, oh, I'm unlovable, she doesn't love me, all of these different things that I was thinking. It's like, whoa, where is this? Where in my body am I feeling that? And I felt it. So I processed it. So then I was able to actually move and to start to respond accordingly to what was happening, instead of reacting based on patterns of behaviors that I had from the past that weren't serving me anymore. And by doing that, I'm not accumulating anything, and I'm living in the present. So the more that we live in the present, the more that we live by processing our experience, by giving it time to actually be felt, then we are not going to get into stress. Now, again, that doesn't mean there's no tension. That doesn't mean that life, everything is perfect. What it means is that I am not creating something that is not there. I am literally just being present and feeling.
Brian, I think that every single person on this planet needs to be taught that process, because we typically are not taught how to move through an emotional state, no matter what that is. We're not actually taught how to process any emotions, really. And I think everybody needs to know how to do that, to actually sit down with it, feel it entirely, to allow it to then move on, because you're right. Otherwise, we just hold on to that. And, you get to be my age and you're having to peel back all these layers and heal all this crap that happened, 40 years ago. Yeah, I think everybody needs to know how to do that and to have that as a tool in their toolkit, really.
Yeah. And something, Lori, that I think it's really important with that is understanding that it doesn't matter your age. Most of it was created when you were a little kid, as well as the things that come from past life, if whether you believe that or not, that's there. What comes from our ancestors, whether you believe that or not. And I think that there's something really important here, that is that, yes, I believe that we all need to actually be educated in a way that doesn't take away our connection with our bodies, or that retrains us into reconnecting if we had some kind of traumatic experience that our body felt like we need to separate ourselves and not feel, so that we feel protected. And with that, I think that it's really important to understand that not everybody's ready to go and look at their experience, because it can be a lot, and B, understanding that sometimes we do need the support of another person, whether that is a healer, a friend, a parent, or someone that can create a safe environment for us to look into those feelings and to heal that. So when I work with a lot of people and we do healings and stuff comes up, like I use, as an example, one of the tools that I use is family constellations. We bring the energy of what's happening in the person's life, and suddenly it comes up that something that their great grandmother experienced is what's actually playing out now, and that blockage is there and she cannot get past it, and it's not even hers. So, and she doesn't want to look at it because it's too much. So understanding that, yes, we all need to learn how to do this. We all have the capacity for it, but it's not always the right time, and it's not always doing it by ourselves, making it safe. And with that, like, I do want to say, the more people that wake up and are actually able to do this, and then they have kids and they use this with their kids are not going to have as much like on top to deal with as I did. Like, I have stuff that I had to deal with, of course, because it wasn't really until I was like a late teenager that I really got into this. But I didn't have as much to unlearn and to go through and to peel back as someone, as you're saying, that starts much later. So if kids start this without having to deal with 20, 50, 70 years of all of this, how much easier and how amazing it is that these kids are going to be able to be connected to themselves and therefore act in a way that is what we need in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And because if you have that connection, if you're connected to not only your own body, but to nature and everything around you, the people that are in your lives, you show up differently. You do the things that are required in order to make the world better for everybody,
Yes.
just
Yes.
naturally.
Yes.
I'm going to go to another area here. So we have stress through work. Like you said, there's tension, there's stress. We do tend to sometimes bring our work home with us, right? So how do you then balance life and work so that you aren't doing that?
Yes, this is a great question. One that I love working with this with my clients, because I think that it's one of the main things is integrating all of this in our life. So most people that I know that are doing any kind of like work in, let's call it spiritual work or self-development or growth work, they are doing that in whatever time they have left outside of sleeping and working, which means that that's not that much time. And why are we not using the biggest amount of time that we actually have during the day for most people, and that is work? So starting to see work as the arena for our development. And here I want to make a few different notes that I think it's important. Our relationship to work is very different for each person. How we place it in our values, what's its role, and how aligned we are to it plays a big part of it as well. There's one of the ways to look at it, that is that we compartmentalize our life into there is work, then there's not work, there's sleeping, there's the week, there's the weekend, there's holidays, all of that. What it creates is separation. And we don't, like, that doesn't exist. Like, there's no such a thing as there's this compartment and then the other one. We're bringing into every compartment everything, in a sense. So therefore, there's no compartments. So of course, someone is going to bring work home, or home to work, or relationships, dynamics to every other single place, because we are not a one-dimensional being. We are a complex, dynamic being. So that's bound to happen. The problem that we have is that a lot of times we don't understand, how to transition and understand cycles and understand integration. So if I am stressed at work and I haven't finished something, and I go home without having done any kind of transition work to understand, okay, I left work and that will wait until tomorrow, unless you're a business owner, therefore, like everything is all of the time sometimes. But, if you're working for someone and for someone in a company and you're not responsible for everything, give yourself the chance, once you're leaving work, or just before or after, if you're driving home, sit for a minute before you start driving and literally allow yourself to transition. Understand, I'm closing this cycle, and that cycle is work, and I'm going to start the next cycle, and that cycle is whatever that is, whether that is going home with my family, whether that is cooking, whether that is going to play sports or doing an activity, allowing ourselves to transition. And that doesn't mean that I'm compartmentalizing. I'm allowing to respond to what's actually present instead of bringing and taking with me what happened before, because I didn't allow myself to literally close that, or at least just press pause and be like, okay, I'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. and then moving back on. Now, that is one of the ways of creating those pockets that are the in-between and are the transition moments. The other thing is that if I understand as well the place that my stress has in play in all of that, it's going to be hard to do that. So it's important for me as well to create good boundaries. This is one of the things that most people suck at, and they are not good at creating boundaries because they don't understand themselves. Therefore, how can I create boundaries if I don't even know what I want to do and how I want to be? The more that I create this understanding of myself, the more that I can create boundaries and I can actually show up and talk to people. If I create a boundary that says that when I'm feeling this way, then I actually communicate to the people I work with, like, hey, I'm not like, I'm really stressed. Can give me a hand with this? Most likely people will help you. There's, like the random workplace that people are not going to be nice and not help you. And the same at home is telling your partner or your family or whoever, it's like, hey, I had a really hard day at work. I didn't finish it. I'm still thinking about it. Like, just know that I'm bringing this home. So acknowledging that that's there, because that's not going to be every single day. Like, perhaps for some people it's more common, but the more that we're able to create the boundary and to communicate and be like, I'm actually don't want to do this, but that's there. Can I create an environment that is going to be conducive to me actually being with it and the people around me knowing I am bringing this? The same if you show up at work and you had something really challenging happening at home. It's like, hey, like this happened. I'm not 100% here. I'm not going to be able to actually meet all of these deadlines. Can someone help me? There's this place of vulnerability that we don't share a lot of times because we think that people will judge us. And I think that people are much more open than what we give them credit for. And yes, it might be that your environment doesn't allow that. Then there's, all of these different ways of working with it.
I think it's absolutely brilliant to even contemplate giving yourself that space to transition from one to the other. And to touch on the boundaries thing, you're absolutely right. Most people do suck at that. And even then, when they do implement a boundary, they don't enforce it. It's great to have it in place, but you also have to enforce it. A lot of really, really great information in what you just said, that I think that if a lot of people would take that in and say, oh my God, I get that. That makes so much sense to me, because we kind of suck at communicating as well. And so you have to let the people in your lives know this is where I am and this is what I need, because you will not get it if you don't ask. Most people aren't going to say, hey, you look stressed. Can I help? Most people just don't, because they've got their own shit that they're doing.
Yes. And I think that it's important also to understand the place that in this society we have given to others. We're giving away a lot of our own power, and we care a lot about what others think, what others say about us. And like I remember I was teaching this class, and I could see that some of the students were, like we were doing some like movement, and some of the students were looking around, kind of like thinking that they were being judged. And I told them, okay, let's stop. Who is thinking that someone else is judging them? And everybody, raised their hand. And I'm like, well, if everybody's thinking that, then nobody's judging you, because all that you're doing is thinking that everybody else is judging you. So it's so much in our head what we believe that others are going to say about us, or that are saying about us, that we are not actually in a place that is real. We are making things up. And also, if someone thinks that I'm a loser, then cool, that's them. I don't have to take it. Learning how to care about people, but not care so much about what they say or might say to make me change who I am, it's so important. And that is key to be able to actually communicate to be open and to be able to create these boundaries and to communicate them, to be able to enforce them. Because if nobody knows what I'm doing, then nobody's going to give a shit about my boundaries because they don't know. Like if I'm going to go to you and I'm going to say like, hey, Lori, I need to do this. And you haven't told me like, you know, a family member just died and I'm dealing with it. It's like, well, I didn't know. So
Right.
there we start to have this disconnection, and it's like I assume that you were feeling fine because you know we said like, "Hey, how are you?" And the default for 99% of the people is like, "I'm good." You, without even actually checking in or being truthful to how they are like feeling, and therefore the other person is just going to act as if you are 100%. So if I communicate that, then the other person can actually meet me where I am.
Yeah. And not only that, Brian, we spend so much time out of our lives with the people that we work with that if we don't have that open, authentic line of communication with them, oftentimes see our coworkers more than we do a lot of the people in our actual families. So it's imperative to have that so that they can meet you where you are.
Yes. Modeling to others that, because when someone actually does that, it gives permission to others to do the same. If I am not going to be open with you, why are you going to be open with me? And therefore, we don't have an honest, open communication with my teamwork because it's like, well, everybody's just fake, you know, everybody's just so like they have this shield and this armor around them. They are not allowing anything to come in. So everybody's just bouncing the ball and the energy around and not being truthful. So it's important a lot of times for me in the work that I do, not to teach, but to model how to be me. So if I am being truthful to myself, I don't care if you are acting the same way that I do. I want you to do you. But we need a lot of times to have this permission and we need to model to others, this is okay. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to, I don't know, like cry or to say, I actually am not feeling well today. I need support. And to seek help. Because why are we trying to do everything for ourselves, by ourselves? There's people in our lives that care about us, or there's people that care even if they don't know us, and they will give support to us. We have this individualistic, separate society, and we place so much pride in that. I'm going to do everything by myself. And it's like, why? Why are we going to do everything by ourselves? If I can actually go to someone like my teachers or my mentors or my coaches and be like, hey, I'm going through with this, and they can give me space, they can give me questions, they can give me, you know, like all of these different points of views on what is happening, and they have perhaps experienced something similar. It's so much easier than to have to deal with all of the weight of that by myself.
Most definitely. And it's crazy that we do have that mentality that we want to take all that on and do it all. That's why they have these motivational posters. There's no I in team. Really take that in, let's do this shit together. It's so much easier if we do and support each other. And let's just say I'm a listener and I want to begin living more in the present moment, being more conscious of just how I'm showing up in my life. Where do I begin? Like, how do I shift the behaviors that I'm currently doing in order to start doing that?
Yes. So I would say there's a few different ways of starting, and this depends on where you are. So if you're listening to this and you can actually create space in your day, even if you put it in your schedule, every single day, give yourself in your schedule, block a time slot there, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, that is for being. You don't have to do anything. You just need to slow down, pause, and be like, I'm just going to allow myself to feel. That is a way to do that. Of course, like if you don't have any tools how to do that, it might be challenging. But if you have some kind of tool of meditation, breath, of being able to come back to the body, do that. There's so many things online, so many guided meditations and yoga and whatever activity that might look like qigong, tai chi. Do that. Set a time aside to actually give yourself every day time for yourself. For other people, it might look like from day one, you go and you seek support from someone. So that might be a coach, that might be a class in your community center or whatever, that there's someone there that not only they are going to support you, they are going to actually keep you accountable for doing that. This is one of the main things of having a guide or a coach or a mentor, that is that they actually keep you accountable for it. The third thing is, like super deep immersion in healing, because if you don't feel ready to actually do this, there's a blockage, and that blockage needs to actually be healed and integrated. So in order for you to be able to actually start to look in, you need to heal something, because it might be too much. So understanding where you are is where you go next. For me, we all have all of the tools already within. It's just about getting rid of what's on top of that so that we are not able to connect with it. So know where you are, acknowledge where you are, and see what's the response that is appropriate to where you want to go.
Yeah, that's perfectly said, really. And it's so important to actually understand that about yourself. And again, with the disconnection, we have become so disconnected from who we are, where we are, what we're doing, and even what we want, that I think it is really key to get that knowledge and then start from there. Brian, I'm going to shift gears here for a minute, because I believe this is really pertinent to living consciously. Is it possible to go zero waste, to live zero waste?
I would say that the idea of zero waste, yes, completely zero waste. It depends on what do we mean by it. So let me say, we all have a footprint. If we're alive, we have a footprint. How big or small, how positive or negative that is, that's up to us. Now, if we live somewhere completely off grid, and I mean completely off grid, where we don't use anything. In nature, there's no such a thing as waste. Everything is circular. So there's a way of doing that. Now, if we live in society like we are living, whether we live in a super consumeristic society like in the US, or we live in other places that perhaps is not as much, but still, what we can do is reduce as much as possible and understand how to live as circular as possible. So for the past 5 years, I created, in terms of waste of things that I know that I cannot compost or that I cannot truly recycle, I have created something that it's inside of a peanut butter jar. I have all of my waste, all of my rubbish from 5 years. And what that means is that I am able to understand my reason why reducing that. So if I understand my reason why, it's easier then to act and then to bring the how. So of course, I'm going to, like if I, for example, with food, if I grow some of my food, or if I buy from the farmer's market, there's no packaging there, which means for most people, food is the number one like waste that they create. There's no such thing as waste, because I didn't buy anything in package. I didn't buy anything that comes in plastic. So first thing with food, it is possible. Challenging, yes. That is where each of us need to decide. Then, like with other things that we buy, is understanding how to reduce the amount of things that we buy, and how to start to reuse, and how to be able to understand what do we actually need. So becoming more, in a sense, minimalist, not in having few things, but things that we actually intend to have. and asking ourselves the questions, do I really need this? How was this made as well? Because a lot of times we don't tend to think about the things beyond what we see. And that is, like I buy, let's say, this t-shirt. I don't know how it was made, perhaps, how it was transported, who made it, what was the impact that they created. And if I don't actually take care of it because I don't place value on it, then I'm going to get rid of it. And most likely it's going to go to a landfill. So if I change my view to have more awareness of all of that, then most likely I will buy something that fits my values and I will take care of it. And I won't get rid of it in a way that doesn't work for me. So the more aware that we are, the easier it is to do that. The slower that we live, in a sense, the easier it is to do that. Because as I said, for example, with food is the number one thing. If I live slowly, that means that I can actually either grow my own food or part of my own food, or go and buy from a farmer's market somewhere that it's not packaged. That means that I actually need to have time to cook, because if I'm buying all of that, that means I need to cook, which means living slowly. If I am all of the time going 100 miles an hour and I'm working the entire time and I always need to either buy takeouts or takeaways or whatever, that is going to come usually in package. So the more slowly that I live, the easier it is to create less waste, as well as, like I know where that food comes from. I have a relationship with it. I'm cooking it. It's more nourishing. It's healthier. But that's another aspect of it. Now, if you are listening and you work a lot of hours and you need to because of your circumstances, what you can do is go and talk to where you actually buy things from, and either take your own container and ask them to put it there so that you don't have to take away with with something, whether that is plastic or cardboard or whatever, that is going to get chucked in 5 minutes, or ask them to buy compostable packaging that at least that that's not a solution, but at least it's better than plastic, especially if you can actually then compost it. If you don't have a compost afterwards, then that's a waste. But if you actually understand the steps of the waste hierarchy, that is that reducing and being able to then understand how to compost, so important. I would say 80% of people's rubbish bins, it's all food. So understanding that just by changing the way that we eat, huge. And then of course we can get into, like the carbon that we're creating and all of that. I don't have a car. I walk everywhere as possible, or, like I use public transport. Every once in a while I catch an Uber or things like that. But, there's no perfection. I think that is about understanding our own values, how we want to live, and live that, and not live according to what anybody else says. Like I was talking with someone the other time about this, and they were like, you just flew to Europe to visit your family. And I'm like, yes, like my family is important to me. I understand the footprint that flying has, but everywhere else in my life, I am reducing as much as possible. So it's not about perfection, it's about being aligned to who I am. So if someone else cares about other things, go and do that, but go and do that willingly. And like I mentioned before, I'm vegan. Like for me, like the main reason why I'm vegan is because of the environment, and then my health, and then the animals. I don't want everyone to say like, go vegan. Everybody's free to do whatever they want. I just want them to be aligned. So if you actually love animals, there's a disconnect if you're eating them. I'm not saying stop. I'm saying go and do an inquiry in yourself where you actually want to do that or not. That's it. It's not about pushing my views into anyone, but it's about understanding what are the things that I stand for, what are my values, and are my actions actually aligned to that? And the more that we learn, the easier it is to notice how complex all of this system is, and actually that there's no perfection. So there's a way of reducing a lot, but it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah. And honestly, there are more and more different options for us in order to do that. Like they're making toilet paper out of bamboo and paper towel and things like that. And, even getting the reusable paper towels. And I mean, just things that we do use on a day-to-day basis. And even switching my shampoo to a bar that comes in a little paper package and there's no chemicals in it and all this. I mean, just all that stuff. We have more and more options nowadays than we ever had before in order to start to make those shifts. And I'm actually in the process of transitioning to a plant-based diet myself. And it's challenging to do this, but it's imperative that we do.
It's challenging because it's a relearning, it's changing habits.
Right.
And it's not only changing the habit of what we put into the body, but also it's like the body needs to adjust. Yeah. And we're all different and our bodies will respond differently. There's a lot of times when people want to go into a plant-based diet, I'm like, well, there's going to be a time that it's like a withdrawal. It's just like
Yes.
if someone was doing drugs and they stop, like you're going to feel that because you're not putting that anymore into your system. Same as if someone stops drinking coffee, like suddenly they will realize like, oh, there's a headache or something. It's like, well, go past that hump and see afterwards how it feels. But this is about, like getting everyone to experience it by themselves and to try things by themselves. This is one of the key things that I had, in whether this is from a sustainability, environmental perspective or a personal well-being perspective. It's not just about listening, reading books, or watching videos. It's about taking action, and taking action that is aligned to what you care about and who you are, not what anybody else cares about.
Right. Without the implementation, it's irrelevant.
Yeah. If I learn how to meditate, but I never actually meditate, then that means nothing. It's the difference between information and knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah.
If I only have information and it's not implemented, it's not understood, it's not being grounded in my body and embodied, then it means nothing. There's so much information. I mean, like go and Google stuff and you will find millions and millions and millions and millions of files and videos and documents and everything. There's not a shortage of information. What is a shortage of is implementation.
Yes. And although I believe it can take many different forms, I'm someone who, until very recently, struggled with establishing a meaningful meditation practice, because you just brought that up. So how can we bring meditation to our daily lives? Because I know I've experienced getting into a meditative state, doing something even as simple as washing the dishes, but I feel it's so important that we have that connection every single day. So how would we go about doing that?
Yes, thank you for that. And I think that's really important. One of the key things that I was mentioning before, that you can use your work, you can use every single thing that you're doing, because meditation, not only it's tools and techniques, it's a state of being. If I understand that state of being, I can bring that state of being everywhere. I can bring it now as I'm talking to you, so I can bring it into any conversation. I can use it as you're saying, as you're like cooking or doing the dishes. You can use anything. I usually say, of course, there's different ways of meditating, and there's ways that are more conducive to deeper type of experiences. Yet, I will say meditation, in a sense, this is not all of it, in a sense, it's about being present and becoming aware. So if you're present in doing whatever it is that you're doing, you are meditating. For someone that, and I've had this experience a lot, that time in a sense slows down, or the experience seems that time slows down. This happens a lot with athletes, especially high performing athletes, when they are in the zone, like when there's a basketball game and there's only 2 seconds and the player can actually grab the ball, turn around and shoot it with all of the things that are happening around, and they are completely in the present moment. That is meditation. That is being present in the present. And you can do that any single time. You can do that as you're typing. As you're typing on your computer, there's ways of actually becoming aware of, okay, I'm going to give myself, as a practice, I'm going to give myself 5 minutes that I'm just going to focus on this. I tell everybody of my coworkers, give me 5 minutes, don't interrupt me, turn off my phone. I'm just going to focus completely on this task. And as I'm focusing completely on that task, noticing the experience, noticing how are my feelings and my fingers feeling, how are my feet feeling that are touching the floor? What about my bottom that is touching the chair? When I bring awareness to my body and to my experience, I'm realizing like, oh, there's a thought there. Come back. Like it's 5 minutes. I just need, oh, there's a thought, come back. It's not about judging. The meditation, a lot of times, I tell people, when you start to meditate, if you're going to do seated meditation, silent meditation, 99% of the time when you start, you're just going to start thinking. Meditation will be okay because it's all about catching yourself and coming back. No judgment. So it's just about being present with what is arising. And little by little, you will notice that, I'm doing the dishes. I can be present with this. I am working. I can be present with this. I am talking with someone. I can be present with this. And if you don't know how to do that, a lot of times, if you don't know how to be present with someone, go and spend time with a kid. Because kids will let you know when you are not being present for them.
Yes.
And I mean that not physically, you can be there, but if you are not there in your mind, you're not really present with them, they will call you off. Another adult, they might not even realize it, but kids will let you know. So being able to use every single moment as the space to practice being present, to practice developing awareness. The more that we do that, the easier it is to do it, because just like anything, it's like trying to go and to get to the gym one day and just being like, I'm just going to do this for one day and I'm just going to lift and that's it. It's like, no, well, you need to actually develop that muscle. You need to give it the time and it needs to slowly build up until it's easier and easier and easier and easier. The same with this. The more that one practices and the more that one gives themselves time to be present, the easier it is to be present without having to do it. You just are that. For me, there is no I wake up and I do my practice. I still do that. I like that discipline and I do that. But that doesn't mean that I step up of my seat and I go to make my breakfast and now I'm completely unconscious.
Right.
I am taking that awareness with me and I'm being present. And of course, that doesn't mean that I'm 100% of the day completely present. But whenever I catch myself, I bring myself back to what it is that I am doing. So if I am at work, I'm working. If I am with a friend, I'm with my friend. If I'm on a call, I'm on a call. If I'm recording a podcast, I'm recording the podcast. If something comes up, cool, it can interrupt me. That's okay. That's where boundaries. It's like I turn off my phone before getting into this call with you because I want to be here with you. I don't want to see any notifications or anyone calling me and interrupting me. So if I understand that, then I take care of it. I go to work and I'm like, okay, this is what's happening. I do my dishes and this is what's happening. And it's not that what I'm doing changes. It can change, but it's about how am I being when I'm doing things.
Yes. I ask this of everybody, but based on your experiences and your current areas of expertise, what one thing would you recommend to someone to help them wake the fuck up?
This is challenging because there's so much stuff, but what I will say is that realizing that you are already woken, in a sense, you're already woke. It's not something that you need to learn. It's something that you need to uncover about yourself. So that I think for me is so crucial that we are not trying to learn anything. We're not trying to get somewhere. We're just trying to uncover what's already within us. And yes, also none of these tools that we've been talking, like meditation or movement or whatever it is, those are tools to help us to get there. But knowing that you are already that is huge. Knowing that you are already in that place instead of having to go out and get it.
It is like a remembering.
Yes.
This has been an absolutely amazing conversation, Brian. I am loving every bit of this. Thank you for taking the time to be with me today.
Thank you.
I will have this information up in the show notes, but for anybody that would like to find out more about what you're doing or what you have to offer or whatever, how would they get in touch with you?
Yes, thank you for that. And thank you for the space and this lovely conversation as well. For people that want to find me, they can find me with my name, Brian Berneman. That's brianberneman.com, or on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I am a little bit more present and do more things under Conscious Action, and that is my business. So that's consciousaction.co.nz, so CO and NZ as New Zealand, or on social media the same, Conscious Action NZ. You can find me there. You can check the podcast. You can check all of the work that I'm doing one-on-one or with groups, and the online courses, the healings, everything that I'm doing. And know that I work remotely and I work in person as well. So even if you are on the other side of the world, we can work together if you resonate with what I'm sharing. If you don't resonate with what I'm sharing, don't work with me.
Right, right. Yeah. Is there anything that you'd like to add before we wrap it up?
I would like to add that listen to things and follow the things that actually resonate with you. If you're listening to this, start to develop more understanding of your feelings and to follow that and to take action based on that, not what everybody else is doing. Do you. If you allow yourself to do you, then you're on the right path. If you are all of the time thinking of what others will think of you, that's challenging. I always say this, I don't care if someone works with me or not. I care that they are actually working with me because they resonate with me. And if they need to work with someone else, I'm happy to do that. We are not living in competition. We are co-creating this universe, and there's no place for competition. It's only cooperation. So the more that we understand that, the easier life will be.
100%. Thank you again for taking the time with me. I know my listeners are going to just absolutely love this conversation, and a lot of amazing tidbits that you had in there that people can implement right away. And I think it's just very helpful information that you brought to the table today. And I'm very grateful for you being here. So
thank you, Laurie. Thank you, everyone, as well, for listening, for taking the time, and keep on listening to the podcast, because that's one of the ways that you find who you resonate with.
As always, I want to thank everybody as well who tuned in today. I am always grateful for your presence, and I will see you all back here next Sunday with another episode as we continue to wake the fuck up.